Hey, happy Friday, everybody. All across North America, leadership in changing times. Little frog in my throat. How are you? From coast to coast, Alexandria, Virginia, Pierce County, Washington, Santa Ana, California, all the way up to Niagara in Ontario, and all points in between. So we welcome all of you. And I know out here in Nevada, it's a nice, is it a nice spring day? I woke up early. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a nice spring day or not. I didn't see the sun. But it's a nice spring day. I hope that the snow and the cold is not affecting you too greatly, and that your crews and your workers who are involved in that task are safe. And for some of you that have parks in your purview or underneath your portfolio, you're starting to get in that springtime parks revitalized and get them opened and get them ready for the season. And it's that transitional time of the year. Hopefully the snow will stop soon. I know many of you have gone over. I got a note from Nashville, and they said that they have gone way over their budget in snow removal, and I know some of you others have done the same as well, especially some of you in the Midwest with some of the challenges. So we're just happy that you're here this morning. We're making that transition now. Yeah, we just finished the agent of change. That agent of change, the individual that understands, demonstrates, and exerts influence by building trusting relationships. So a couple questions for you. Did you make your list of the people of influence? And did you identify those key players in the various stakeholder groups that you need to have those deep trusting relationships with so you can exert influence? And whether it's managing those above you, managing those around you, or managing those below you, right? Did you send out that survey? Oh, survey. Remember the 3 questions. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Suggestions for my improvement. And if you could send me back to school, what class would you make me take? Did you send out that survey? Because that was a trust-building exercise. Did you ask people how you're doing? And did you get that feedback? It's unique for an executive leader to ask others, how am I doing? That feedback is, I say the breakfast of champions. You get that feedback, and then you begin to do something with it. I got an email from one of your counterparts, one of your fellow executive leaders in a municipality, and he said this. He said, I sent it out. I've already started working on some of the feedback, and I've already got somebody who sent me a note saying, I can see that you're working on the things that we discussed. Because he had taken that feedback. He had then met with his people, said, here's the trends that I see of things that I'm doing well and things that I'm not. Here's my plan to work on the things that I'm not. And he's already getting feedback of people saying, wow, we really appreciate a leader that would be willing to take feedback, share the trends of the feedback, and then come up with a plan to rectify the deficiencies in performance. Now, don't you think that the trust level has gone up significantly there amongst his direct reports? Don't you think that they appreciate him and maybe even admire or at minimum respect him more? And don't you think it's going to be a lot easier for him to go back and give direction and talk about their performance? In today's day and age, in this user-driven society, as we look to marshal human capital, as we look to lead people, we have to remember that we're in that user-driven context. People want to have a say. That top-down autocratic approach probably is not going to work. So that agent of change understands that and is proactively looking for ways that they can build trust. Well, now we make a transition and we move to the next competency. And this competency, I think, is critical today. You see, there's not enough time, energy, or effort at your disposal to get done everything you're responsible to get done. Not only within the 4 walls of your department, but the other obligations of your life. There's not enough time. There's not enough energy, and there's not enough effort, resources. Forget about money, just not enough in you to get done everything that needs to get done. So there must be an answer. There must be some way. I know that I have felt like that. I've felt overwhelmed, too much. I've been blessed in my life to be in positions where I had no business being in that position. What do you mean? I mean that somehow life circumstances has put me on a number of occasions well beyond my capacity, well beyond my knowledge, well beyond my talent, well beyond my ability. As a young person, just out of high school, I found myself in a position where I had to coach. I was coaching kids that were just a year or two younger than me. And then I found myself coaching on the university level, having no business being there. Way beyond my capacity. And I remember the pressure because I knew that everybody else knew I was way beyond my capacity. So I searched for answers, looking for answers. And I stumbled on answers. And the answers were a way of doing business, a system for doing business that I gleaned from other people. And I implemented those systems, and I had success. Then through a series of life circumstances, I found myself out of the coaching industry and as a busboy. Yeah, 24-year-old busboy. The El Dorado Hotel Casino in Reno, Nevada. 3.5 years later, I was the director of hotel operations, overseeing 750 people and eventually 1,100. How does that happen? I have no idea. I think those people were drunk. They were drunk as they promoted me along the way. And again, I found myself in a position where I had no idea what to do. I had no capacity to lead all these people. Many of my direct reports, they weren't just older than me. They had been in the business longer than I had been alive. I was only 27 years old, and they had been in the business 30 years. And I was in charge of them. That's crazy. And I felt the pressure again of being beyond my capacity. Except this time, unlike the coaching situation, I took a step back. I remember crying. I'd be at home crying because I knew I didn't know what to do. And I knew everybody else knew I didn't know what to do. So I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough energy. I didn't have enough resources. And I looked around. I was into motivational quotes, things of that nature. So I looked around. I started reading, looking for some answers. And I came across the quote of a guy named Archimedes. You remember him. He Greek, mathematician, philosopher, the father of geometry, or one of the fathers. Buoyancy, the compound pulley, and the fulcrum and the lever all came from the mind and the heart of Archimedes. And Archimedes said something very interesting. He said, "Give me a place to stand, and I will move the world." And I read that. I was like, oh, wow, give me a place to stand. I'll move the world. Hey, 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 here we go. Woo! And I thought, well, what did he mean? So I went back and I kind of looked it up. You know, I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box. Barely graduated from high school, as you know. But I'm kind of self-educated. So I went back and looked. The context of that, give me a place to stand and I will move the world. What did he mean? Well, the context, for those of you on the engineering side of public works, he was talking about his fulcrum and his lever. And he was basically saying, if I have a fulcrum big enough, a rock or whatever, a fulcrum big enough, and I have a lever big enough, I can move just about anything. And that's when it hit me, like a ton of bricks, actually. If I have a system, I can do just about anything. Because that's what Archimedes was saying. That fulcrum and that lever were a system, a device, a force multiplier. Write that down. A force multiplier that allowed him to do more than he had the physical capacity to do. That's the compound pulley. You know, the legend has it that there was when Archimedes designed this compound pulley to test it, he hooked it to a boat that was out in the bay where he lived. And that boat would normally have taken 10 men to pull it in. But he was able to do it, just this old man and his compound pulley. He was able to pull in this boat. And legend has it that they freaked out. The people of the town freaked out. They thought he was a god. A system. So I started to do more and more research and more investigation in this idea of systems thinking. Big picture, holistic systems thinking. Well, I took this systems mentality and began to deploy it. This idea of creating systems that were force multipliers, that were able to take what little talent or ability I had, or what little time, energy, and effort I had at my disposal, and could maximize it. And in the research, something else dawned on me. That's what I had done to get out of the situation I was in coaching. I had deployed systems to train, systems for an offense, systems for a defense, a system. And then it was working in business as well. And then as I did more and more research, I realized that it would work in life. The bottom line is this: there's not enough time, energy, and effort at your disposal to get done everything you need to get done. There's not enough time, energy, or effort to get done everything your department's required to get done. So there must be a solution. And Archimedes gave it to us. Not necessarily the fulcrum or the lever, but the concept, the learning there is, what systems are we utilizing? And if you start doing some research, you'll come across the writings of Senge and others who make the assertion that everything in the universe is a system. And I bought into that. I'm now of the belief that those people are right. It is all a big system. Although it may not be tangible, although it may not be something that I can feel, it's a system, man. I'm not sure where you're going, Ian. Just follow me here. By definition, a system. What is it? A system is an organized collection of parts, highly integrated to accomplish a specific task or goal. That's a system. Now, here's the funny thing. Systems either organically grow up and take hold, or they're intentionally designed for a purpose. This first one, what does that sound like? I don't know. It's just what we do around here. I don't know. It's just kind of what we do. What do you mean? Just kind of what we do? Yeah, I don't know. Just what we do. That's a system that is organically grown up. Or we have systems that we intentionally develop for a purpose. And what happens sometimes with those is that purpose is served, and then eventually over a period of time, those systems are no longer relevant, Jeff. Oh, and I got to welcome Margie. Margie in the chat box. New Margie. Everybody chatting. Hi, Margie. Hi, Margie. So Margie's in the chat box. You'll get to interact with her more during your coaching session. But, you're always more than welcome to chat it up with her right now. So that system that sometimes is intentionally created stays in place long past its intentions or long past its relevance. I still don't know if I'm following you. The whole world is a system. Our whole existence is a system. Like the universe, the solar system. Isn't it amazing to you that a fiery ball in the sky, millions of miles away, if it moved 1 inch this way or 1 centimeter that way, that our whole world would change? Isn't it amazing to you that a ball in the sky in the night controls the ocean, the ebb and flow? Doesn't that amaze you? And yet it's not connected in any way, and yet it's totally connected. System. How about biological systems, your human body? Isn't it amazing that you don't have to think about your heart beating or the blood pumping? Isn't it amazing that your body, even though you and I abuse it, still functions well for most of the time? There is no machinery on God's green earth that functions as well as your body. The systems of your body. How about mechanical systems? That thermostat over there on the wall. That thermostat is a deeply integrated set of parts to accomplish a specific task. You turn it, and all of a sudden it gets warmer, gets colder, whatever. How about human mechanical systems, like the bicycle? That's a human mechanical interface. And it multiplies the capacity that I have. I do not have the capacity on my own to travel at 20 miles an hour. But if I get on my bike and I find myself a hill, I couldn't pedal 20 miles an hour. But if I find myself a hill, right? I mean, stop and think about that. That's a system designed for a specific purpose that multiplies my force. How about ecological systems? You know, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And you see the lion, and you see the wildebeest, and then you see that little sad wildebeest at the end, and the big pack of wildebeest, and all the other wildebeest look back and they're like, dude, I don't have to be the faster than the lion. I just got to be faster than you. And they all just take off, and the lion takes it down, and then the vultures come, and the hyenas come, and then the bugs come, and all of a sudden, that carcass decomposes, and the flowers grow up, and then the pollen, and then the system, right? I feel like, what's that? The circle of life, right? The circle of life. Haven't you seen it? Anything you need to know about life can be learned in Disney movies. Don't you know that? That's what you learn when you have kids under 10, like I do. Point is this: system. Okay, let's bring it back. Let's start to move it more towards your situation. Social systems. Social systems. I don't know, I'm just so excited. So excited. I'm just happy to be having this baby. My mom had me when she was 15, and her mom had her when she was 15, and here I am about to have a baby, junior in high school. Now, that's not a value judgment. That's just systems. I don't know, we're just doctors, just what we do around here. I'm a doctor, my dad was a doctor, his dad was a doctor. Systems. How about performance systems? Time management, performance management systems. Now, some of you that came up in certain sides of the profession, you were trained systems thinkers. You're trained systems thinkers. But others of us, me included, are not trained systems thinkers. It doesn't come so readily to us. The bottom line is this: there are systems at play in your workplace today. And they have either organically grown up and taken hold, or they were intentionally developed for a purpose. Deeply integrated set of parts that were put together to accomplish a specific goal. That's the systems. I think if you're going to be a successful executive leader, you must have a systems thinking mentality. Now look, that doesn't mean systematic necessarily. Look what Capra said. Capra said that there must be in the 21st century a shift amongst leaders. A shift from parts to whole. A shift from things to relationship. A shift from structures to processes. A shift from hierarchies to network. A shift from rationale to the intuitive. A shift from analysis to the creation. So, proactive, holistic systems thinking. Like, take for example, there's a lot of talk about youth in our society, and that so many are not happy with the youth of our society. Well, what good systems do we have? Systems to build the citizen of tomorrow. Are communities focused? Have we integrated deeply a system, holistic system, where both educators, families, and youth-serving organizations and faith-based groups and all of the people that interact with youth are on the same page for helping develop the citizen of tomorrow? Do we have that? Maybe in a community here, a community there, but we don't have a big picture. And then we wonder why we're not getting the citizen of tomorrow that we want. Trust me, there's a system in place to develop the citizen of tomorrow. Multimedia, social impact, all that stuff. And so the systems have organically grown up, and trust me, they're impacting the citizen of tomorrow. How about in your workplace specifically? When you bring on a new hire, if you are hiring anybody new, but training somebody, Is it just a process where you give them to somebody and somebody says, yeah, I know what they're telling you to do, but trust me, we're not doing that. We're going to do it. I'll show you what we're going to do. That's a system that's organically grown up. And if you look at where you are not completely satisfied with performance, I guarantee you, well, I almost guarantee you that it's a systems issue. A system for gathering thoughts and ideas and concerns. A system for delegation. A system for motivation. A system for your own personal time management. Systems. Because there's not enough time, energy, or effort available at your disposal to get done everything you get done. So the guy or the gal that can find the force multiplying systems is going to be able to do more with less. And whether less is less in your budget or less is less time in your day, whether less is less energy or less is less staff, the only way to make it is that compound pulley, figuratively speaking, or that fulcrum and lever. So we've got to be looking for those systems, and whether we borrow them from others or we create them ourselves. Systems. All right, that was a long lead up. Oh, side note, just to be clear, a pile of rocks is not a system. If I have a pile of rocks and I pull out one rock, nothing changes. But a car engine is a system. Take out the carburetor, doesn't work no more. Systems. If any parts, listen now, if any parts or activities in the system are weakened or misaligned, the system will fail. Now, I want to ask you to look introspectively within your life. Not happy with your relationships? Probably a systems issue. What? Systems issue? Yeah. Yeah. The way you spend time, the way you communicate, the way you interact, those are all systems. A system for communication, a system for time management, those are all systems. Yeah, but you're making it so harsh and cold. No, I'm not trying to. I'm just saying, if you're trying to figure out how to fulfill all the roles you play in your life, dad, husband, mom, wife, you're somebody's brother, you're somebody's child, work, the roles that you play out in the community, time for yourself, don't you have to have a highly integrated system to be able to take on all those roles and satisfy your obligations in each one of them and then thrive in each one of them? It would only make sense. Systems. So not only if you're not completely satisfied with your department, certain parts of performance, it's probably systems issue. But I would suggest to you your life as well. If there's areas of your life that you're not completely satisfied, it's probably a systems issue as well. Okay, let's do the self-survey, right? So what's the competency? The competency is big picture, holistic systems thinking. Today's leader utilizes a proactive systems thinking, holistic approach. Today's leader utilizes a proactive, holistic systems thinking approach. So let's go through the survey. I'm just going to read them randomly. You rate yourself. 10, I'm totally like that. 1, I'm nothing like that. I understand there's a symbiotic relationship between human beings. That's that. Do you see the system? Can you see how those groups are connected? Can you see how that this group and that clique and this clique, and can you see the dynamics of it all, the human dynamic? You know, Senge said that that's one of our biggest problems, is that we take slices of life and try to solve problems, and instead of looking at the big picture, the holistic system, and solving at that level. I can apply strategies for learning about a group, its key stakeholders, and its resources. I demonstrate knowledge of the roles and responsibilities of employees, departments, and governmental entities. Do you see how it all connects? Or are you just myopic in your view? I can apply techniques that would generate creative, out-of-the-box thinking. See, I think creative thinking is a system. I don't think it's about being brilliant. I don't think it's about being creative. I don't think it's about inherently being born innovative. I don't buy into that crap. I think anybody can be a creative thinker, an innovative thinker. You just got to learn a system for doing so, a sequence of thinking to do so. I have a system for identifying thoughts, ideas, and concerns of my people. As an executive leader, do you know how to tap into the collective intelligence of your group? I got 5 employees, 10 employees, 50 employees, 100 employees, 1,000 employees. Can you get great ideas out of them? Can you prioritize those ideas? And then can you take the best of them and implement them? I don't need to be brilliant. I just need to create an environment where great ideas come forward. That's the skill that's necessary today. And if you say to me, well, I have an open door policy, well, you're a fool. Whoa, Ian. Fool, that's pretty harsh. Well, stop and listen to this. An open door policy is a reactive communication system. Because by the time somebody walks into the door of the executive leader, it's probably a big problem. Right, Jeff? That's a failed system. I would want to know about it when it's a little bitty issue before it becomes a big mushroom cloud. So in this 3 weeks, we're going to talk to you about a system for identifying thoughts, ideas, and concerns, prioritizing them, picking the best of them, implementing, and bringing them to fruition. Now that's a system. I'm aware of my department's culture or DNA. There is one. Did you intentionally create it, or did it organically grow up? I can facilitate the development of systems and processes that will foster an environment that supports success. I would suggest to you it's context oftentimes that creates success. That's not true. Watch the NCAAs. And when you look at some of the best performing teams, they have a culture of success that's been passed down year after year after year after year. Look at other sports endeavors, culture, or look at institutional. You can see that. You can see it in a culture, a winning culture, a culture of excellence. You walk in, well, somebody created that system. I understand how to take the ideas of my people, prioritize them, and implement them, and have a system to do so. I have a system for moral. No, that should be morale. Add an E on that one. Put a little E in there with moral development. Morale. I'm aware of what motivates others. I can apply strategies to motivate others. Where are you at? 1 or 10? So, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to unpack systems. And I'm going to actually give you more systems that you'll have time to download. Okay? I'm going to give you a lot of systems. Now, what I want you to do, and that's the beauty of this, because this portal is available to you till December 31st, I want you to pick out the systems that would be most relevant to you and your needs. And then you can go back and look at the other ones. So, here's the bottom line. You don't have to be overwhelmed. You don't have to feel the pressure of not enough time, energy, or effort, or low budget, or whatever. There is an answer, and I believe it's systems thinking. Force multiplying, the creation of force multiplying systems, and having a big picture, holistic approach to leadership. How do I do it? I choose to. And as I got off my bed, tears in my eyes, 27-year-old kid, having no idea what to do, it dawned on me that I could choose to build systems. I could choose to build systems. Just like Archimedes chose to build systems, I could choose to build systems. Some of you have probably Googled Let Them Be Kids. You know, you hear about my association with Let Them Be Kids, and you probably Googled 4 most innovative social programs in the world. A couple years ago, we got named that, or up in Canada, nominated as the Volunteer Organization of the Year, and other stuff. You say, well, that's pretty cool. Systems. It's all systems. That's all it is. It's just systems. That's how a small group of people can do all those projects. Systems. Good quality systems. So, has nothing to do with anyone's intelligence, creativity, any of that. It just has to do with systems thinking. So, choice, systems thinking, success. Choice, systems thinking, success. Now, what we're going to do over the next 3 weeks, starting today, is I'm going to give you examples of systems. Give you examples of systems. A system for outside-the-box thinking. A system for delegation. A system for proactive listening. Proactive listening. A comprehensive system for identifying and addressing and implementing thoughts, ideas, and rectifying concerns. Why is that so important? Because we need great ideas today. So it's not just enough for you to be a creative thinker. You need to have a department that's creative and innovative. You need to be able to tap into the collective intelligence of all of the stakeholders within your department. A system for creating organizational culture. A system for motivating. When it comes time, your direct reports are going to learn a system for performance management. I'll share that with you as well. So in the systems category, session category on the learning portal, there's going to be a ton of stuff. You're not going to be able to get to it all. So what I want you to do is pick and choose those areas that would be most relevant and impactful for you. And I think for me, one of the beauties of this program is that we're going to give you a lot of information, but we're also, during the 15 weeks for sure. But then, because it's available to you to the end of the year, you can come back to it. So prioritize it. Well, how am I going to prioritize it? Did you send out that little survey that I talked about earlier, where your employees told you what you were great at and what you weren't so great at? Well, maybe you should look at the what you ain't so great at and look at the systems that would correlate to that. Or the question that said, if you could send me back to school, what class would you make me take? Those answers will probably give you some insight of where you should focus your energy for the next 3 weeks. At minimum, though, think in terms of the specific system, but in broader terms as well of being a systems thinker. There's some of you that don't even see these systems I'm talking about. You're just walking through life. And like Senge said, you're looking at slices. Executive leaders, big picture, holistic, systems thinking. And what's funny is when you start doing that to a greater degree and you start intentionally creating those systems, and then you start testing systems to see if they're still relevant, and you start eliminating the organic creation of systems, and you start doing it in an intentional way, you start to see exponential improvement. Because there's alignment, that principle of alignment. Alignment of time, alignment of energy, alignment of effort, alignment of thought, alignment. The greater alignment, the greater efficiency. The greater alignment, the greater impact. It's like water, man. When it heads out of the head end, it's like a torrent. But then there's impediments along the way. And by the time it gets out to the other end, drip, drip, drip. Well, your department is the same. And so the systems help us focus that energy all the way through, from you all the way out. And remember, you as an executive leader, you're not judged on your performance. You're judged on the performance of the person furthest away from you. The person furthest away from you is how you're being judged. And you know that because that's why you get the phone calls. All right, turn the page. Let's dive into the first system. Now, you're going to have to forgive me. Stormwater of Durham, North Carolina, stormwater department, because I don't have your water bottle with me today. I know. I don't have your reusable water bottle. I have this water bottle, and I apologize. But I won't make that mistake again. I'll make sure that I have my supplied water bottle so I'm not filling the landfill with plastic. All right. Outside the box thinking. There's a lot of talk about outside the box thinking. There's a lot of discussion about being creative and innovative and the like. A lot of discussion about all that. And that's fine. That's great. Here's the challenge. Very, very few people are innovative. And it's not because they're not smart. And it's not because they're not bright. It's because innovative thinking is, I think, a system. You see, I sat in many meetings. And I would try to come up with a great idea. And I never could. And then somebody at the end of the table would be like, oh, here's an idea. And everybody would be like, wow, that's such a great idea. Woo! And I'd be like, ooh, I never come up with a great idea. I mean, seriously, never come up with a great idea, ever. I mean, the least creative person you've ever met in your life. I mean, look at me, the way I dress. Monochromatic every single time. Just not very creative. And I got frustrated. And I said to myself, this creative thing, this innovative thing, this think outside the box thing cannot just be a birthright. It can't be that somebody sprinkled dust on your head and all of a sudden you were brilliant. It can't be that. There's got to be something else. So I started doing research. And I came across the studies and the work of a guy named Dr. Ludwig at the University of Texas. And Dr. Ludwig said something very interesting. He said, no. It's your pattern of thinking. It's patterns of thinking. That certain patterns of thinking produce certain ideas that are more creative than others. So it's not just brilliance. I got a fighting chance here. And then I went and did more and more research. And whether it's critical thinking skills or blah, 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 all of them basically said that we create a sequence when we problem solve from a very young age. We think to this, and we think to that, and we think to this, and we think to that, a pattern of thinking. And then I came across other research that said that pattern of thinking becomes so ingrained in our brain that it actually creates grooves in our brain. The synapses and the chemicals firing the same way over and over and over and over and over again. And you know what's crazy about that? And then we wonder why we get stuck in habits and have trouble breaking them. Systems thinking applied here, it dawned on me. I just needed to have a sequence of questions or a sequence of inquiries or a sequence of thoughts whose pattern would produce an innovative or creative idea or was more likely to. And then I stumbled on the Kellogg Foundation, and they validated what I had been thinking. And they had done tons of research on outcome-based approach. So what you're about to go through is a combination of all of that. But the bottom line is, can you come up with a creative idea? Can you come up with an innovative idea? And I don't just mean this. Write on your paper right now. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. What does that equal? Without going to your iPhone, your smartphone, or your BlackBerry, tell me what 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals. Oh, it equals 10. Very good. Now, here's what usually happens. We sit in meetings, and we're going to come up with a great idea. We're going to come up with an innovative idea. We're going to be innovative. And somebody says, oh, I got an idea. Let's put that 4 first. Oh, that's good. That's outstanding. All right, let's put the 3. Oh, very nice. And then put the 1, and then somebody yells out, yeah, the 2, then the 2. And you're like, yeah, the 2. And we rearrange the numbers. We high-five each other. We pat ourselves on the back, and we walk out the door. And the answer is 10. And that's what we call innovation. That's what we call creativity. But we get the exact same answers. Most governmental, or frankly, any organizational thinking usually sounds something like this. This is the process we usually go through to come up with something innovative. Look at these questions. Well, if we invest this time or money, if we have so much time or money, it's usually resource-based. If we have this much, then we could do these things. And if we could do these things, then we could have this kind of an outcome. And if we could have this kind of an outcome, we could have this kind of an impact. So it's usually that sequence. If we have this much time, we could do these things, have this outcome, have this impact. If we have this much money, we could do this thing. It could have these outcomes. It could have this impact. Or if we have this many people, it's usually that mentality. It's a resource-based fact. Well, Ludwig said that inherently that defends the status quo, because it works off the premise of what is, not what could be. It works off the presence of the existing, not the vision. And he said that that was flawed. So for me, I think you've got to flip that sequence. So I'd like you to go through the following sequence. Now, I took this sequence. I literally put it on a 3x5 card. 3x5 card, and took it to every meeting I went to for a year. Took this sequence, put it on a 3x5 card, and took it to every meeting that I went to for a year. Why? I was creating a new system or a new pattern of thinking that would hopefully lead me to more creative ideas than not. Now, the next time we get together, we're going to talk about how do I create an organization of creative thinkers? How do I put systems in place that will allow the thoughts and ideas and concerns of my stakeholders to come forward, prioritize those, implement those? You see, for me as an executive leader, I want to create an organization that's constantly coming up with innovative ideas to reduce expenses, to increase service, to increase efficiency and effectiveness. But I realize that that oftentimes generates a lot of work. So I better have a system for taking those ideas and doing something with them and prioritizing them and implementing them. And I got to be able to do all of that at very low cost of time, talent, and treasure. So we'll talk about that, but let's first start with us. How do I become more innovative? So here's the sequence that I would follow. Step number one, what do I want it to be? Step number one, what do I want it to be? Now, what Covey say, begin with the end in mind. Or you could say, that's outcome-based planning. Sure. Sure. It's validated. It's been true for 2,000 years. It'll be true for 2,000 more. So don't look at me and say, well, that's not very creative. Well, it is, because most people don't do it. What do I want it to be? What does it look like, smell like, feel like, taste like? Now, why do I use those descriptors? Because you're not going to get anybody to buy into the vision when we talk about being a catalyst for responsibility down the road. You're not going to get anybody to buy into the vision if you can't describe it in those very simple terms. What does it smell like, look like, feel like, taste like? Those descriptors. Step number two. Where are we at today? Now, next to that, write this. Courageous conversation. A courageous conversation. You see, I would suggest to you in your department, there needs to be some courageous conversations. Now, what is that? A courageous conversation is where we sit down and talk about what really matters. Where we don't talk about blame, where we don't point fingers, where we don't attack, where we don't look for a scapegoat, where we just talk about what the hell is wrong. What is the problem? Why do 7,000 kids in the United States drop out of high school every day? I think it's every half day. Is that acceptable? How can that be acceptable? Or 5,672 kids kill 5,672 other kids every year. Is that okay? Don't you think we should have some courageous conversations? I don't need to blame anybody. I just need to fix it. What about within your department? What is that thing that you know is going on, but you're not addressing it? That courageous conversation, you address it. But here's the key. We don't blame anybody. We don't attack anybody. We allow people to share their opinions and their ideas without defending or attacking. We just talk about what matters. Courageous conversation. Who will lead the courageous conversation? Who will expose themselves and be open to the courageous conversation? People look for transparency. People are looking for authenticity. You can be that leader. Now, we're not going to talk about the how to do that today. We'll talk about that down the road when we talk about gathering thoughts, ideas, and concerns. But for now, courageous conversation. So what do I want it to be? Where are we at today? A courageous conversation. Then, and this is the nuance that most won't discuss or apply. What attitudes would have to be shifted to get from here to there? You see, you can have all the resources in the world, but if the attitudes aren't on board, forget it. Forget it. And I've seen many situations where there was limited resources, but the attitudes were on board and they maximized those resources. It's about attitudes, and it's about shifting attitudes. In most of your communities, based on the size of your community, if the right 7 to 11 guys or gals got totally on board with what you were doing, you'd have no problem with resources. that crazy? If the right 7 to 11 guys or gals got on board attitudinally with what you want to do, you get resources. So is there a lack of resources, or does there need to be an attitudinal shift? I would suggest to you in most instances it's an attitudinal shift. It's an attitudinal shift. You haven't seen my budget. You weren't here when we froze the wages. You weren't here when we laid people off. If there was an attitudinal shift in the importance and value of public works and the impact, the potential consequences that are on the horizon to our failing public works infrastructure across North America, if people had an attitudinal shift to that importance, you'd have the resources to do it. Think of all the crazy things we have resources for, but we don't have resources to make sure the pipes work? Come on. Or that the bridge is safe? Come on. And yet we're spending billions of dollars in a whole other places. So I don't know if it's a lack of resources or do we just need to shift attitudes. The sheriff's pretty good at shifting attitudes. Or the police chief, they're good at shifting attitudes, man. You'd think if one penny was cut from one of their budgets, man, apocalypse. Now, before you send me notes and letters, I love our fire and police brothers and sisters. I'm just pointing out the fact that they're good at attitudinal shift management. They're pretty good at that. That's all I'm saying. Love them. Love my sheriff, Sheriff Furlong. Love him. Love my chief up in Oshawa. Love him. Okay? But, hey, just observation. So what attitudes would have to be shifted? Then, what activities could I do to shift those attitudes? Is the attitudinal barrier trust? Is the attitudinal barrier a lack of information? What's the attitudinal barrier to get us from here to there, or attitudinal barriers to get us from here to there? And then, what activities could I do to shift those attitudinal barriers? Then and only then, what resources would I need to do those activities, to shift those attitudes, to take us from where we're at to what we could potentially become? Well, Ian, I don't understand how that gets us to an innovative idea. I think what it does is it forces us to have an outcome mentality. It forces us to have a hard and honest conversation of where we're at so that we get solid information. Then it forces us to talk about attitudinal barriers that will prevent the implementation of any plan anyways. Then we talk activities, then we talk resources. I think when you flow that way, what you start to find is simple ideas that are innovative. You start to find revolutionary ideas because you haven't started just moving the numbers around. You're adding new numbers or taking away numbers. You're getting a different answer because you've flowed the information through that outcome-based approach. And that pattern, I at least have found, started to take us to more innovative and creative ways of doing things. What do I want it to be? If you were to call me on the phone, as some of you have, and some of you have inquired and said, hey, Ian, will you come to our town, or you come to our place, or you come to our state, or you come to our province? And somebody who answers the phone is going to say, why? Why? What's the outcome you hope to achieve? What's the outcome? And if somebody can't explain to me an outcome, well, why in the world would I want to spend any time? I have a finite amount of time. I have a finite amount of energy. I have a finite amount of resources. And if you can't explain to me the outcome, why should I give you any of mine? Conversely, how many of you have wasted people's time or wasted your own time because there wasn't clarity of outcome? And you didn't have an honest conversation about where we were at. This sequence, this pattern of thinking, 3x5 card, on a table, sequence through it every meeting. Well, how would I do that? Well, you just say this. So what exactly do we want out of this? How do we want this to be different when we're done? Or then you could say, well, okay, if that's the case, then well, how do we want it to be today? Or, well, I'm sorry, where is it at today? What do you guys think it's at today? Okay, I get that. Thank you. What about the attitudes of the people involved? If we try to create this shift, what do you think their attitudes will be? What do you think the barriers might be? And then so on and so on. That's it. But you got to get into the habit, the 80% of your unconscious behavior. You got to get in that pattern. So 3x5 card. You know what's interesting about that? And this is anecdotal, but it's just ironic. Put that on a 3x5 card. Did that for a year. About, I guess it was 16 months after starting that process. Let Them Be Kids, our nonprofit, our charity, was voted one of the foremost innovative social leisure programs in the world. Yeah. Is that crazy? That's stupid. The only thing that changed is we just started following that pattern as an organization, just following that pattern of thinking. And we did start coming up with more innovative and creative ideas. Now, that's anecdotal. I agree. But it's ironic. I don't like your little pattern of thinking, and I don't particularly care for your outside-the-box approach. I think it sucks. Well, okay, that's cool. I'm good with that. I mean, it works for me. I just lay it at your feet. You do what you want, but I know this. You better have a way to come up with a creative idea, dude. You better have a way to come up with an innovative concept. Why? Because our society cries out for leaders that can either come up with or facilitate the development of some innovative and creative ideas that the times require. Now, it might be that you're more of a facilitator, which will be a discussion the next time we come together, where you can draw out the idea. But I would suggest to you it's probably both. You want to be able to generate them on your own, and you want to be able to facilitate the creation of them through the various stakeholders you interface with, marshaling the collective intelligence of others. So I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not offended if you don't like my pattern. Good. Cool. All I'm trying to do is provoke some thought and say, do you have a system that will generate more times than not an innovative idea? Because that's what the times require. We need that. And we need leaders that have the skill set to do that. So you don't like mine? Go to the University of Google, go to the University of Yahoo, type in creative thinking skills, type in innovative thinking patterns, or how to come up with a great idea. And then you're going to get 495,000 responses in 1.29 seconds. And if you're on dial-up or rural high-speed, which rural high-speed just means slow, it might be 7.9 seconds. Fine. But please, 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 you have an obligation to be able to come up with a great idea. And it's not just closing your door and thinking. Let me just think harder. Let me just think harder. Let me think harder. Let me think harder. No, because that's not going to take you to an innovative idea, because you have deeply ingrained patterns of thinking that will probably take you to the same idea over and over again. That's why when a problem is presented to you, you sequence it out probably the same problem-solving way. That's why when an opportunity is presented to you, you probably sequence out the decision in a certain way. Patterns of thinking. Now, I'm not judging yours or judging mine. I'm just saying, are they serving us well? If they're not serving us well, then we've got to find systems that are more relevant for today. That's all. Archimedes knew it, one of the smartest guys that ever lived. And he's teaching us that now through the eons of history. He's saying to us, have a force multiplying system. All right. Over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to give you a lot of systems. Not just on Monday mornings, but I'll give you some other systems as well. Now, it's not because I want to inundate you. It's because I want to give you plenty of information, and then you pick and choose. Yeah, I need to learn more about delegation. That's a good one, Ian. I'm gonna jump on that system. Or, you know what, I don't need the information on motivation. I've got a good system for that. Performance management, I'm good. Or whatever. So you pick the ones that are most relevant to you and that you think will make the most immediate impact. All right, in our last 4 minutes, check this out. So systems thinking, next 3 weeks, big picture, holistic systems thinking approach. We'll use specific systems to make the point and hopefully move you towards being more of a systems thinker. All right, now the time has come. The time has come for you to pick out your one thing. Well, you told us last time you were going to pick out the one thing. I know. We had a little technical glitch with the online submittal, but that's been corrected. So on Monday morning, I'm going to start asking you for your one thing. Now, there's 2 ways that you can submit that. One way is if you are more into the traditional hard copy. You know, you've got your, wrong one. You've got your form. It says commitment action plan, your name, objective, the action steps you're going to take, the dates you're going to complete, potential obstacles, support resources needed, accountability partners, and you can sign it. And you scan it in and you send it to me. Or, yeah, there you go. Good job, Jeff. Ian@thechangingpoint.com. Very nice. Or you just click the link in your email on Monday morning. And then you got a form that you can fill out online. All the same stuff. You'll get an email. I'll get an email. What's the point? The point is now we take and start taking these concepts and we put them into play. You gave a survey to your people. You did a survey of yourself. You did that leadership history survey. We've given you 3 and 4 ways to look introspectively within yourself to identify some areas where you want to grow. Now, rubber meets road, make a commitment. In the coming days, I'll be challenging your front line and your mid-level to do the same. This program will only be effective if we see performance improvement. So let's make that tangible. You tell me what you're going to work on. You show me your plan to work on it. And then I'll be your accountability partner if you can't find anyone else. And then as we go through the next, whatever it is, 12 weeks or whatever, then we will follow up with you. I will follow up with you, how you're doing. And I'll read every one of those commitments. How you doing on your commitment? How you doing on your commitment? How you doing on your commitment? And we'll see how we do. And we'll see what we accomplish. Because then we've been good stewards of time, we've been good stewards of money, we've been good stewards of resources. Because at least we can look at anybody and say, 80% of our people picked out one thing and got better at it. That's pretty good. And imagine if 80% of your department or the group participating in this program picked out one thing and then 12 weeks later they were better at it. You'd see a fundamental shift. You'd see a rise in capacity. And you'd get a tremendous boost of pride, self-esteem. We all got better at something. So please, 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 please. Now, I'll be honest and straightforward with you. If I don't get your one thing in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to start nudging you. I'll start sending you notes. Hey, man, where are we at with that one thing? Where are we at with that one thing? Not to be a taskmaster, but because I know the importance and value of it. I know the value of it. I thank you for all you do. As an executive leader, I know that there's tremendous pressure on you, especially in today's society, especially in the public service sector. And you play a major role. Your work and your department touch every single citizen from cradle to grave. Your roads, your bridges, your water, protecting of the rivers, streams, culverts, the like, snow removal, parks, playgrounds, just all the stuff that is under so many of your purview. You touch every citizen from cradle to grave. You provide the infrastructure and the platform and the framework for 21st century society to even happen. You're important. And we thank you for the time and energy that you put in. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Bye-bye, everybody.
When you're looking for something